Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the CACFP fiscal year 2024 renewal training. My name is Karen Scheck-Schneider, and I am an education consultant with the CACFP here at the Louisiana Department of Education. And we've got a lot of information for you today that we're going to be going over that you'll need for the new fiscal year. Since we are a federal program, I'm sharing the non-discrimination statement with you because we have to have that on all information that goes out to the public. Before we get started on our information, I'd like to remind you about a couple of things. Please make sure that you keep your cameras turned off and your microphones muted because that's very distracting when we have people with cameras on and microphones that are interrupting the presentation. I know sometimes it can be entertaining, but please make sure you keep those cameras off and the microphones muted. And we have Angela Lewis-Kelly behind the scenes that is also managing that. So if you forget to do any of that, she'll go ahead and do those for you. Also, please use the chat feature to ask any questions that you may have about anything that is presented today. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to give you a little overview right now of what we're going to be talking about today. So there's going to be four main areas that we're going to be discussing today. The first main area is going to be about your online applications. We're going to talk about when they're going to be released, some reasons why they might not be released, any changes that you can expect this year to the applications. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about procurement for people who have vended meal contracts. So I will be covering this first section. And then our next area that we will be talking about is the KidCare electronic software program that's going to be mandatory October 1st of this year. And David Thibodeau is going to be reviewing that information with you. And then our third section that we have titled Additional Information and Resources includes some brief information about the reimbursement rates that were effective July 1st. We're going to talk about the compliance reviews for this fiscal year coming up, updates on our training for this year. We're going to review some additional forms and things you need to remember about some forms that are frequently turned into our agency and any website resources that we have. And Brittany Augustus is going to be reviewing that section with you. And then we're going to end our presentation with our required annual civil rights training. And that is going to be presented by Debbie Gary, and she's going to close out our presentation. So let's go ahead and get started. We've got a lot to cover today. So the first thing that most people want to know is when are the 2024 CACFP online applications going to be released? So we have them actually scheduled to be released the week of September 11th, which is this week. So I'm hoping that we are able to test those applications by this afternoon or by the latest tomorrow morning, because we always like to test a few before we send them out to everybody that's able to receive the applications to make sure that any changes we made in the applications are not going to cause some major problems that we didn't anticipate. So our goal is definitely everybody that can have their applications released to them should have them released by the end of this week. So just a reminder of how you'll be notified that your applications have been released. An email will be sent to the official email address of your sponsor, notifying them that the applications are available to be completed for fiscal year 24. It's not going to come from any one of our particular staff. It's a computer generated email from the CNP website. And I want to remind you that that email doesn't contain any link, code, or password that you would need to access your applications. It's just informing you that they're now available. So you will just need to log into the CNP website and go to your CACFP tab, click on applications, and automatically when you click on applications, the new applications will appear under your application section. If you for some reason would need to revise your 23 applications, you would have to hit your selection and move back. So nothing special in that email. It's just telling you, hey, your applications have been released. So there are some people who will not receive their applications by the end of the week. We have about 50. The last time Tammy Floyd did a check We have to check areas each year to be sure that you are in compliance. And these are the three main areas that will hold up someone's application from being released. So if your SAM registration is not active, you need to make sure that you log into your sam.gov website, that website, and you use your unique entity ID when searching for your registration in SAM. If you haven't logged in over a year, the system is going to list your account as inactive, and we can't release your applications to you. If you're not sure where to find that SAM ID number, you can find it on the first page of your sponsor application that we have listed here. Another common area where people are not in compliance and we're not able to release applications is the Louisiana Secretary of State's office. You must be in good standing. Most of the time, if people are not in good standing, it's because you didn't file your annual report. And so you do need to go in and make sure that you're in good standing with that. And there is a fee to file that annual report, I believe, but I will also want to remind you that as far as the SAM registration, there is never a fee to renew that or to set up a SAM.gov account. So please don't be fooled by these emails that some people were sending out asking for $500 to renew that SAM. There's never a fee to renew SAM. And then the third area that may cause your application to be held would be if you were not in good standing with the IRS, and that would be for our nonprofit agencies. So let me tell you that Tammy did a review of all of this again last week. And anyone who was not compliant in one of these three areas would have received an email from her around September the 7th. And in that email, she's very specific. She tells you exactly what it is that you're not in compliance with for your applications to be released. So you want to check your emails from last week and make sure if you did receive something from Tammy that you go in and you make the correction. And you do need to notify her and send her the information that shows that you are now either active in SAM, good standing with the Secretary of State, or good standing with the IRS. Okay, so the next question is, what's the deadline to submit the 24 CACFP online applications? So renewing sponsors have to have the 24 applications submitted and approved before November 30th, 2023, in order for us to approve your applications back to October 1st, 2023. So don't wait until the last week in November to submit your applications, because there's no guarantee they can be reviewed and approved before the deadline. There's mainly 4 of us that are going to be mainly working on these applications, and we have over 400 sponsors to applications to review. So if you use a bunch of people submit a whole lot of applications at the end of November, it's really hard for us to make sure that we can get to all of those before the end of the month. The best practice is it's recommended that your applications are submitted by the end of October of 23 to allow us time for review and approval so that you don't have any gap in your approval times. Okay. So these are just some reminder slides. Once you're notified that the applications are available for you to complete, how do you access those applications? You'll go to our cnp.doe.louisiana.gov website. You're going to click sign in, and then you're going to click on CNP web. And that's going to bring you to our login page for our website. You're going to log in with your login and password. Once that comes up, you're going to click on the CACFP tab at the top. It's like an orange-red tab. And then you're going to have a menu of items on the left-hand side. What you're looking for is the option that says applications. When you click on applications, you're going to see a menu of application options. And those options are the same options that you saw last year when you clicked on the application. So we still have an upload option, requirements, waivers, sponsor application, facility application, budget application, and submit application. So the first feature or option under the application menu is an optional feature. It's not it's not a step in the application process. We did add this last year or the year before. And what this is it's an upload feature that can be used anytime during the year. And it's not just during the application renewal process. It can be used to send us copies of your updated licenses for your child care and adult centers. This is mainly why we added this feature. So so that people don't have to call and say, what's the fax number? I don't know the fax number. Or what's the email address? Who do I need to send this to? You can automatically log into the website, go to upload, attach a copy of your updated license. It comes to us in a to-do list, just like when you submit your applications to us or revisions, and somebody will have to take that and enter that information into the system to update your license. This upload is not going to automatically update your license. It's just a way for you to send that to us. You can also send other miscellaneous documents to us through this upload, such as a food service contract, LDH permits for our at-risk sites, at-risk area eligibility, pre-approval forms, anything that you might need to send to us and you're not sure who to send it to. You can always upload it and it'll come. Someone's always checking our to-do list in the website. So another reminder is this upload, you can only send PDF files. And let me show you what it looks like once you click on upload. You're just going to click on choose a file. You'll find the file that you save to your computer that you need to send to us. You'll click on it, it'll attach it. Then you're just going to choose whether it's license or other, that the next option. That's just a heads up to us as to what you're sending us. And we add an additional comment section only if it's necessary. You don't have to unless there's something you need to explain to us about what you're sending. You click on the green file button and it's sent. It comes straight to us. If you uploaded the wrong file and you realize that before you send it, you can hit clear and red button clear, and it's going to remove that file. And if there's any issues with anything that you submitted to us, we will give you a call to clear up that. So I just want to remind you about this feature because it's not used that often, but it is available to you. Okay, so the next option under the application menu is the requirements section. This is the actual first step in the application process that you must complete. If you do not complete the requirements section first and you try to go to your applications, you will not, I believe you won't even be able to really get into your sponsor application, and you definitely won't be able to submit your applications until you complete the requirements section. So make sure you remind yourself that that is the first step in the application process. So once you click on requirements, you're going to see the example that we have below. We have 4 requirements this year that you have to certify. The first 3 have been on the requirement list since we added this feature a few years ago. We have a new one this year called the CN Data Sharing Agreement. So you'll have sponsor information confirmation, CNP permanent agreement, acknowledgement, pre-approval training certification, and the CN Data Sharing Agreement. So the example shows you here, when you first open your requirements for the new year, they'll all say incomplete because you haven't confirmed any of them. You'll click on the blue name of the requirement, so sponsor confirmation or pre-approval training certification. That page will open up and you'll need to follow the steps on there. You'll have to enter your login and password to confirm that requirement, and that is the login and password you use to log into the CNP system. So once you do that and you click submit, what you should see instead of incomplete now is it would say something like completed by Jane Doe on September 11th, 2023. That's how you know that one's been completed. So you want to go through each one of those and make sure that they no longer say incomplete, that they say complete. So I want to just go over 2 of the requirements and give you a little more information about those. The first one you have to confirm every year is the sponsor information confirmation. And this is an area that sometimes holds up your application for approval, because when you open up this requirement, what you're going to see is all of your official information that is included in your permanent agreement. It's going to have your organization's name, mailing address, physical address, telephone number, official email address, your executive director, board chairman, and authorized rep. So if any of this information is incorrect and needs to be changed, you're going to have to indicate that there's going to be a selection for this particular requirement that's going to say, yes, this information is correct. No, it's not correct. So if you say, no, it's not correct because you need to change a telephone number, or you need to change your executive director or your official email address, then that's not going to stop you from continuing to complete all the requirements and submit your applications, what that does is it sends a notice to us in a to-do list that says this particular sponsor has something that they need to correct on their permanent agreement. So you will receive an email from Tammy Bloyd, and she's going to be sending you, it's going to have instructions of what you need to do. It's going to have an attachment with an agreement amendment form. You're going to need to fill out that form as soon as possible and submit that back to her, because we cannot approve an application if you have told us that anything in your official information is incorrect, yet you have not gone in and corrected that with us. So it's just going to sit there. Even if everything else in your application looks perfect, it cannot be approved until you update that official information with us. So if that sits too long and we don't get a response from you, we will have to send those applications back to you in a return package, which I'll talk about a little more later. And I just wanted to remind you that if you are needing to change your organization's official name or mailing address, that will also require you to submit IRS tax documentation with that agreement amendment form. In addition, if your official email address that's listed is no longer a working email address, then you need to call our office, because the emails with the agreement amendment are always going to go to the official email address, and you're never going to get them if that's the issue, that your email address is no longer a working email address. So make sure you complete this information as soon as possible. Then the other area that I wanted to talk to you about is the new requirement that's going to be added this year. It's called the CN Data Sharing Agreement, and it tells you at the top the purpose. It says your sponsor's participation in this program requires the organization to review and accept the addendum to data sharing agreement between the Louisiana State Department of Education and CN Resources. So most of you should be by now familiar with CN Resources. That's the agency that the state is contracted with to complete all of our compliance reviews with our CACFP sponsors. So this is a new agreement that they wanted to include in the requirement section, because CN Resources has to have access to your data for your participants to complete those reviews. And they have to have that through information sharing with them, and also through the Kid Care account, which David will talk about later. So we are requiring you to certify this now that you're agreeing to this data sharing agreement, so that CN Resources can access those records. So you see the example of what it looks like at the bottom. You'll just type in I agree, your user ID and password, hit submit, and then that will be confirmed, that particular requirement. Okay, so that was everything for the requirement section. Remember, that's the first step in the application process. So the next option under the application menu is the waivers section. And they didn't remove that from the application menu in case there would be a need in the future for waivers. That section was added during COVID. But there are currently no approved CACFP waivers at this time. So this section, the waiver section, you can totally skip. There's nothing for you to do in this section. I do want to remind you that there are no waivers, and that all meals and snacks must be consumed on site. And that all meals and snacks must meet meal pattern requirements. Because in the past, there were waivers that allowed us to make exceptions to this, but that has all expired. The public health emergency has expired. So everything must return to normal operations. So don't complete the waivers. If you accidentally click on that waiver section, what you're going to see is that example below. There won't be any waivers for you to even complete. So just totally skip that section, but I just wanted to share that information with you. Okay, so the next step is to actually start on your applications. So you must complete the applications in the order that they are listed. You have to complete the sponsor application first, the facility application second, and then the budget application, because information from the sponsor and the facility application populates into your budget application to create your budget for the year. And people call a lot and they'll say, "There's something wrong with your application. My facility application calendar is all red, or my budget is 0. Well, there's nothing wrong with the applications. That tells us that you did not go through all of your applications in the correct order. The sponsor application, the facility, and the budget does not copy the information from year to year. You have to go through each page of that application and complete all of the required questions on those applications. So just remember, it's absolutely important that you follow those steps. So we're going to talk about now any reminders or changes that we are making to the applications this year. I just want to tell you that for the majority of our sponsors, which are child care centers, a lot of these changes are not going to even be applicable to you. They're more applicable to smaller groups in our program, but this is a combined presentation for everyone. So just keep that in mind, that the child care centers, you might say, well, a lot of this doesn't even apply to me, but we do have all of our sponsors are participating in this presentation. So the first thing I want to remind you about is not a change, but it's a reminder for the sponsor application, is that last year we added error messages or issues to the top of each page. So what this is, and this is going to appear in your sponsor, your facility, and your budget application. So I'm just talking to you about it in the sponsor, but it's going to be in each one of your applications. So what you're going to see is a list of issues that will appear at the top of each application page. The list is going to provide you with feedback about information that has not been completed on that specific page of the application. So when you first open your new applications for the year, you're going to have, every page is going to have a bunch of issues at the top because the application is blank. But once you go through the questions and you answer each question and you hit next at the bottom of the page, if you were to go back to that previous page, if you answered all those questions, all those issues would be gone. You wouldn't see anything that's under that issue section at all at the top of the page. So you want to make sure that if it was me, what I would do is I would go through the sponsor. You have to go through the sponsor application first. Once you finish with page 8, I would go back to page 1 and I would just hit next through each page just to make sure that I don't have any of those issues at the top. Because if you do, you need to correct them, because if you have any issues on any applications, you won't be able to submit the applications for approval. And you know, when you're submitting for the new year, everything has to be submitted together. So the reason that we have this on here is just to remind people to submit a complete application with all required questions answered. It makes your application approval process go a lot quicker if we have a complete application submitted to us. So this is just a reminder that you will see this at the top of the page, but it should disappear once you complete the application and hit next. Okay. So we're going to talk about now the only real question change that's going to occur on the sponsor application. It's going to be on page 2, and it's going to be labeled as question 14. So this question is only going to be applicable to school food authorities. So who are school food authorities? Those are our public school systems, our private school systems, or our charter school systems. All of our other sponsors should not even see this question on their application. That's what our IT department is telling us. They're going to have this set up, that this question is only going to appear on sponsor applications for school food authorities. So if you're a school food authority, you will have to answer this question. So what this question is this year is saying that the CACFP regulations allow school food authorities which serve meals to children that are 5 years of age and older and are prepared in schools operating the National School Lunch or School Breakfast Program are eligible to substitute the National School Lunch or School Breakfast meal pattern in place of the CACFP meal pattern. And that is only for 5 and above. So SFAs have got to tell us which meal pattern that they are going to be electing to follow this year for their participants that are 5 and older. So any meals or snacks served to preschoolers that are not commingled with other students must follow the CACFP meal pattern. And if you are a school food authority and you do select the NSLP meal pattern, just know that you will be required to complete and submit menu certification for those CACFP meals. This is something that we verified with our regional office from USDA, and they said that absolutely is an option. It's in the regulations, but that if a school selects NSLP, then they have to follow all the requirements of NSLP. So if you're a school and you do select the NSLP meal pattern, just know that we will be requesting additional information from you for the application approval process. So before we move from this slide, I have to say, remember I told you we have not tested these applications yet. So I cannot be 100% sure that this question will not actually appear on everybody's application. So I have a little disclaimer in red here that tells you if for some reason, once the applications actually are released and it does appear on everybody's sponsor application, not just our school food authorities, if you are a non-school food authority sponsor, such as a child care center, adult center, nonprofit at-risk sponsor, or a shelter, then you need to just select NA for this question because it's not applicable to you. I hope it works out the way that they said, because that'll make it a lot easier and it won't be as confusing for people whether or not how they need to answer this question. But if it does appear and you are not a school, just select NA. Okay, so that is it for the sponsor application. I'll just give you a little heads up about there will be a change to page 7, question 4D, which is the question that does ask you how you are maintaining your records, whether it's state approved records, the kid care system, or other records. There will be an upload. You'll have to attach something now with that question, but that is going to be related to kid care, and David Thibodeau is going to discuss that with you when he discusses the kid care section. So just keep that in mind. There will be something additional in the sponsor application that everyone will have to upload. Okay. So now we're going to move on to the facility applications. So once you finish your sponsor and you don't have any more of those issues at the top of your pages, you can move on to your facility application. When you click on facility application, you're going to see your listing of all your facility applications. If your organization has multiple sites, you will have to complete a facility application for each site. Please remember that. And information from your facility application populates into your budget application, again, to create that budget for the year. Something I want to mention to you that we've tried to get put into place for the last couple of years, but apparently it's a much more advanced feature than we realize, is that people often ask us, they'll email or call and say, look, I have these old sites on my facility listing. They're inactive. I don't run those sites anymore. I don't sponsor those sites. Please remove them from my listing. We are not able to do that at this time. That is definitely a priority for the future, hopefully, so that you would only see sites that are currently active and you wouldn't have all these old sites listed on your facility listing. So for now, all you're going to have to do is just ignore those sites that are no longer operating under agency. You just won't fill out the facility applications for those sites. And I just want to remind you, also remember, if you have our child care center or adult center, make sure that all the facilities that you need to submit for approval this year have a license that's active. If on page 4 of the facility application it says your license is expired, make sure you get that into us and we get that updated before you try to submit any of those applications, because you cannot submit a facility application with an expired license. Okay. So the first new thing that you will see on the facility application will be on page 2, and it's going to be something labeled offer versus serve. Again, just like the previous question in the sponsor application that we talked about, this question is only going to be applicable for our adult daycare centers and our at-risk after-school programs. So our child care centers and our shelters should not even see this question appear on their application, hopefully. So what we want the adults, daycares, or the at-risk after-school sites to do is indicate whether or not that particular site is going to participate in offer versus serve. Offer versus serve, I will just give you a short definition of it. It allows participants to decline some of the food offered in a reimbursable breakfast, lunch, or supper. And offer versus serve may only be used for breakfast, lunch, or supper service and may not be used for snack service. So we've needed to add this question to our application for a while, and we actually were able to get it in this year because we are supposed to collect that information from our adult daycares or our at-risk sites, that they're supposed to verify whether or not they're using offer versus serve at that site. So if you are one of those sponsors, you will click yes or no for your site. if the question does happen to appear, just like I said previously, on the child care center or the emergency shelters facility application, and it's not able to be only on the sponsors that need to answer that question, then the child care center and the shelters will just select NA because that question is not applicable to you. And if you are an adult center or an at-risk after-school program, and you'd like additional information about the offer versus serve option before you make that selection in your application, please contact our office and we'll be happy to provide you with that additional information. Okay, so this is just a reminder. We're still on page 2. Most of the information that we're going to see any changes are on page 2 of the facility application. This is just a reminder. There is a section that's right below where your meal times and your ADP are on page 2 that starts as labeled as at-risk meal supplemental information. It also includes a qualifying school with attendance zones, time interval for summer vacation and enrichment activities. Only the at-risk after-school sites need to complete this section. Our child care centers, adult centers, and shelters should always skip this section. And you might say, well, Karen, you told us if we skip something, we're going to have an issue at the top of our page. But this particular section is not set to require you to fill it out because not everyone has to fill it out. And what we see often every year is that sponsors like child care centers are filling out this section and they don't need to. So we have to go in and remove all this information. So I just want to list this on here as a reminder so you would know when you get to this section, if you're a child care center, adult or center or shelter, just skip over this section. It is not something that you need to fill out, and you shouldn't have any issues with any error messages for not filling that out. Okay. So we do have a change on page 2 under that at-risk meal supplemental information. If you saw from the previous slide, let me just go back real quickly. The enrichment activities section in 2023, you had to go in and you had to type in the type of enrichment and educational activities that you provided. This year, we've changed the format for that requirement. And we are now have made it a checklist of the most common activities. And remember, this is for at-risk programs only. There will be an option for you to select other and list your enrichment activity if it's not listed on the list above. If you select other, then you have to give a description of what your enrichment activities are. You can't just leave it as other. If you're a school system and you're using the expanded learning time as your enrichment activity, then you would check other, and then you would put expanded learning time in the description box. And you are able to select more than one box. So you definitely want to give us as much information you can about all the different enrichment activities that you have. So remember, this is only for our at-risk sites, and we're hoping that this will, because sometimes people would skip over that box, but this might remind you a little bit better that you need to actually complete the enrichment. It's a required section. So staying on page 2, right under that enrichment section, if you are a school food authority, remember that's a public school, private school, or a charter school, and if you selected as your enrichment activity that you were operating an expanded learning time, then you're going to have to certify the statement that you see below there that says that the SFA certifies that the school operates an expanded learning program and operates a minimum of 7 hours of instructional time in a school day. So that's what certifies that you qualify for that expanded learning time. So remember that instructional time is different from total school day, which would also include the time for lunch breaks, recess, etc. We had a clarification of that recently. So the minimum of 7 hours the site must operate is 7 hours of instructional time. And then right below that, we did add something that requires all school sites to provide their school operating hours. That's the actual start time and the actual end time. So even if you're not using the expanded learning time, all school sites still have to complete that school operating hours section. It's not optional. Okay, so that was it for the facility application. The last application, that you have to fill out is your budget application. And if you've done all the previous applications, then you should actually have a budget that's calculated when you end up on page 2 of that budget application. So in the budget application on page 2, which actually has all your budget categories, what we did is we went in and we changed the name of the category that was previously called non-food supplies. So now that category has been renamed as food service supplies. It doesn't change what was allowable under that category. We just thought that maybe changing the name might give people a better understanding of what supplies are actually allowable under that category. Because sometimes we hear people saying, well, I thought it was everything else that wasn't food. So then sometimes I've seen, people had a busted pipe somewhere. Oh, well, I paid for it and it was under non-food supplies. Or I paid for, a permit or something that I needed and oh, it was under non-food supplies. That is not what non-food supplies are. So we renamed it to food service supplies, and those are items used in the preparation and service of meals and the cleaning of food preparation and food service areas. Some examples, but this is not all of inclusive of everything that could be approved under this category. But the most common things we see are disposable utensils, plates or containers for holding or carrying food, paper towels, napkins, foil paper, or food service gloves. So you don't want to buy gloves for the entire center. It's gloves that you might use in your kitchen area, and also cleaning supplies for your kitchen and food service areas. So this is just an effort to try to maybe give people a little better understanding what actually is included under this category. So in red at the bottom, I did have a request to add this into a reminder for the budget application, that toilet paper is not an allowable CACFP expense. I won't go into detail about the argument that people give us as to why they think it is a CACFP expense, but it's not. It's considered a general daycare expense, so you shouldn't be paying for it with your CACFP funds. So the next page, page 3 of the budget application, we do have a new question that was added to that page. So that question is now going to be question 3B. And this question is going to be applicable to all of our sponsors. So every sponsor, no matter what type of sponsor you are, you're going to have to answer this question. So we've always had question 3A on this page, and what that question would ask you is you had to list your other sources of income available to meet costs not covered by the CACFP and to ensure payment of fiscal obligations should they occur. So do you have other funding sources to cover in case the CACFP payments or have been delayed, to keep the food program running, or if you have a compliance review and you have an overclaim, you're not allowed to repay any of those funds with CACFP funds. You have to have another source of income. So we always had to ask you for the name of what was the other source of income. Just like you have to be reviewed by us, we have to be reviewed by USDA, and we had our review in August. And one of the things that they told us that we were going to have to add, we were have to start capturing in our application, was not just what was the name of the other sources of income, but what was the annual amount of that income that would be expected to be received from those sources of income. So that's what you'll see now for question 3B. It says list the total annual amount of income for the sources identified above. So if you see in the example that we have here, this sponsor checked child care assistance program and private pay weekly tuition, and then they estimated the amount of funding that will be received for those two programs to be $85,000 for the year. So what we don't want to see is $1, $100 there. You have to have a sufficient source of income to cover the program if for some reason the reimbursement payments are delayed or you would need to pay back any over claims. And I just want to remind you, please don't list any CACFP income here. I see that often people check other and they list CACFP income in the box. This section only wants to know about non-CACFP income. So please don't list anything that is CACFP here. So this question, it is applicable to all sponsors. And then I have a note at the bottom that I wanted to share with you because something recently came out in August. So this is just a heads up that I'm not sure when this will be implemented, but additional changes to the budget approval process and review of financial information will likely occur due to the Child Nutrition Program Integrity Final Rule that was published by USDA on August 23rd of 2023. So that was recently. And there's going to be some changes, it seems like mainly to sponsoring organizations, how we have to approve your budget and financial information for the year. Remember, a sponsoring organization is an organization that has more than one site that they're operating. So we don't know what the changes exactly are going to have to be, that will have to be implemented. But that's just a heads up that if something comes up before the next fiscal year about having to collect additional budget information, please don't be surprised, because that may be a requirement. Okay, so I just wanted to go over quickly some budget application reminders, because the budget is typically the thing that holds up your application the most from being able to be approved, and that information we receive is incomplete, and we may have to return that application to you for you to provide additional information. So you have to make sure that when you see your total estimated reimbursement that the system is calculated for the year, that you take at least half of that and put that under the food purchases category. So you have to make sure half of your money is spent on food, because it's the most important part of the program to make sure that you are providing quality food to your children. Also, your budget applications won't be able to be submitted if your total amount of all of your budget categories exceeds the total estimated reimbursement that you're expected to receive for the year, or if your administrative expenses, which includes your administrative labor costs, exceeds 15% of your budget. You're going to see an error message, and you're not going to be able to submit your application for that. This is a reminder that any labor costs paid with CACFP funds must reflect time spent only on CACFP duties. If an employee has multiple duties in an agency, only the time spent on assigned CACFP duties may be included in the budget and approved to be paid with CACFP funds. So if you have someone who flows between being your cook and a teacher in the afternoon, you can only include the amount of hours that that person works directly in the food service area in your application under food service labor. Same thing with administrative labor. It should only be time absolutely spent just on CACFP duties. The next thing we see is that budget category requests that appear to be excessive or that are shared costs would require additional information. So we would ask you for additional information to justify why you're asking to be able to spend that amount or that particular cost in your budget this year. Shared costs are costs that benefit more than one program, such as utilities, telephone audits. Most of the time, we only see that with our larger agencies that get quite a large reimbursement. And any of those categories would require an allocation plan to support the amount charged to the CACFP. So if in the past, you've always had to submit forms for certain categories, go back and look at your applications and make sure you at least do what you had to do last year for those categories, submit that additional information, because if you don't, it will be considered incomplete. So any contracts for specific budget items must be submitted along with the budget. That might include something like an office, kitchen, or equipment maintenance contract. If you have autochlor service, a grease trap service, or for some of our Head Starts, you have a consultant dietitian contract. That has to be submitted with your applications. And the state may require additional information from the sponsor to ensure that any particular cost is allowable. And I really want to stress this, that budgets submitted without appropriate budget justification cannot be approved until all the required documentation is received, and incomplete applications will be returned to the sponsor. Okay, so if you have any of those things that we talked about on the previous page that you might need to attach as documentation with your budget, right below the total of your budget on page 2, you'll see there's an upload feature that where it says attach document. You would click on that, or the manage button. It's going to open it up. You would just like you uploaded a document or you attach an email, a file in email, you'll just attach that document that needs to be sent to us. You can only attach one document. So if you have multiple things you need to send us, you need to scan it all together and attach it in one document. You'll upload it into the application and it'll come through to us with your application. If you need the budget justification forms to fill out, right below the upload feature, you can find those by clicking where it says you can click there to, you can save those forms to your computer so that it's easily accessible through that link there. Okay, so that's it for the application. You've completed everything. It's time for you to go in and submit your applications. So this is just a reminder that if you go in to submit your applications and you didn't go back and check to see if you had completed everything correctly, you are going to see something like, hopefully not this bad, but something like what you see on the left-hand side of the page. That is when a sponsor tried to submit their applications for the year, and they had all these questions that they did not answer, all these things that were incomplete of the application. If you ignore them on the top of each of those pages under that issues, then they're going to come back here to remind you. So it's going to tell you exactly what you didn't answer, in which application, which page, which item number. You need to go back to those applications, correct those issues, and then once you come back to the submit applications, hopefully you would see something more like what you see on the right-hand side. When you have a check box next to the application that you need to submit, that means that you have no errors and that application is able to be submitted. What I want to stress here is if you have multiple sites that you've completed the applications that you need to submit, you need to make sure that each of those applications has a checkbox. Because if you go to submit and one of them doesn't have a checkbox because your license is expired, you didn't fill out one of the questions on there, it's going to come to us and we're going to know that something happened. You did not submit all the applications that you actually filled out. That's going to be considered an incomplete application and we're going to have to send it back to you. So the next thing that I want to talk to you about, so let's say you've got all your applications approved for the new year, you're good to go. Well, we always tell you that anytime during the year after your initial applications are approved, if you have a change to your application that needs to be made, you can complete an application revision. So we have some reminders here and some updated deadlines because we've been having a lot of problems with people not submitting and completing revisions in a timely manner, not completing site additions in a timely manner. So we had to tighten up our deadlines for submitting those things. So the first thing I want to remind you is that any calendar changes must be submitted as soon as possible, preferably before the change occurs. Calendar changes that are not submitted in a timely manner have no guarantee of being granted approval before the claiming deadline. If you submit, you're submitting a calendar change on the day before the 60-day deadline for that, and you miss out on that, because it has to go through a couple of people here at our department before it's actually approved, and you miss the deadline to be able to submit that claim, your only option, if you've not completed a one-time exception before, is to request that. Otherwise, you'll lose out on submitting that claim. So make sure that you're doing your calendar changes as soon as they happen or before they occur. For site additions, we've been having so much trouble with this lately. We have a lot of, even just our daycare centers, that are adding new sites on. They're having going from one site to multiple sites. So it is recommended that your site additions be submitted before the site actually begins CACFP operations. All required paperwork for the addition of a new site must be submitted prior to the facility being added to your facility listing. So I want to remind you, though, that if you're adding a childcare site, we're going to ask you for your license and a pre-approval form. That's the initial paperwork that we need just to see if your site might be eligible for participation. If it is, then we can add it to your listing. But submission and acceptance of that required paperwork is not considered complete approval. You must complete and submit the facility application to the state for final approval. So you submit your paperwork, we add the site in for you. You have to go in now and complete that facility application and submit it. Site additions will only be approved moving forward for CACFP participation to start in the month that the facility application was submitted. So let's say, for example, you turn in all the paperwork that's needed to add a site in September, but you wait until November to submit that facility application that was added. You're not going to be approved back to September. Even though you submitted paperwork in September, you didn't submit the facility application to November. November would be the first month that you could be approved to start claiming in the CACFP. So please be mindful. We need to know when you're operating. You can't wait 2 months to let us know that you are operating at a site. That needs to be notified ahead of time or as soon as possible after you start operations. And then this is a reminder for our at-risk sponsors. At-risk sponsors requesting to serve meals or snacks on weekends and holidays must submit and receive prior approval for those operating days. Weekends or holiday service will not receive retroactive approval. So if you come to us after the fact and say, oh, I forgot I needed to add this weekend date that we operated, it will not be approved after the fact any longer. You need to let us know ahead of time, because we had a lot of issues where that might be the only sites a sponsor was operating for the year. We missed the opportunity. They were in the review region that year. There was no opportunity for us to review them or view any meal service. So you must submit that prior to operating and receive approval. Budget revisions are not retroactive, so the expense must be approved by the state before it can be paid with CACFP funds. This is another big reminder, this last area. If you are adding a site, as we previously talked about, or making any changes in your applications that affect the operating calendar, meals or snacks served, enrollment or labor costs, then you must always submit a sponsor and budget application revision along with the facility application, because all those changes affect your sponsor and budget application, and everything has to match. We can't have all these applications that are not matching, not saying all the same information. So if all the required applications are not submitted together in a revision package, the applications will be returned to the sponsor as an incomplete application. So I've been talking a lot about that. What is an incomplete application? Incomplete applications will be electronically returned to you, and the sponsor will be notified via email. The return email message will include a list of the specific areas that are lacking the sufficient documentation needed and prevent the approval of the submitted online applications or revisions. So some examples of the most common incomplete applications we receive are: if you're an at-risk site or a shelter, you did not attach your LDH permit to operate on page 3 of the facility application for your site. Can't approve that site without a current LDH permit. If you had budget categories that require additional justification and you submitted it without any of that additional justification uploaded, cannot approve that. That's an incomplete application. If you have a vended meal contract and you did not upload a sufficient contract for that, those meals, that's incomplete. Application packages submitted without all your active sites, not an incomplete application. And lastly, revisions or new sites submitted without all the necessary applications, your sponsor and budget application included. All of those are the most common incomplete applications we receive. They will be returned to you for you to complete and resubmit. So you must review and resolve the identified issues and resubmit the application package to the state for review. This is an example of what the email will look like when you do receive your applications might be returned to you. It will tell you they've been returned, and it's going to tell you exactly what you need to correct and then resubmit those applications to us. So we're going to give you details about what it is that you need to do. And this feature was added last year. We may not have used it as much as we should have, but we may be using this feature a little more this year. We're not going to send back an application for a very minor issue that we can take a quick phone call or a quick email to resolve. But any of these things that you probably already know that you were supposed to submit this and you submitted it without that information, it's going to go back to you. So this is the end of the application information. I have one more quick slide before I turn it over to David Thibodeau. Your vended meal contracts, if you are a sponsor that purchases meals already prepared from a sponsor, from a vendor, the small purchase threshold changed from $30,000 to $60,000 in August of 2022. And most people that have these contracts, you received an email from me in July reminding you about what you were required to do this year with your contract. So I'm just going to touch on all these very briefly. Any vended meal contracts that were entered into last year under emergency procurement are not eligible for automatic renewal and must rebid through the formal bid process if the contract exceeds $60,000. Vended meal contracts that were in the 5th year of the contract during last fiscal year 2023 or this current one are not eligible for renewal. These contracts must be rebid through the formal process if they exceed $60,000. Sponsors that do not complete the formal bid process as required would not be approved to pay the vended meal contract with CACFP funds after the current contract expires and before the next contract is approved. If there's a gap, the sponsor would have to pay for the vended meal contract with general funds until the procurement process or new contract is approved. So make sure you don't procrastinate on that. Vended meal contracts that were not in the 5th year of the contract during 23 may be eligible for renewal if a material change has not occurred to the original contract. And any contracts must be signed on our LDOE standard vended meal contract without any alterations. So I thank you for your listening to me. And I will now turn that over to David Thibodeau for him to go over what I'm sure a lot of you want to hear about is the kid care portion.
Good morning, everybody. Again, thanks for that introduction there, Karen. David Thibodeau. I've been with this state probably 21 years now, and we've never had a change. I've never been through this type of thing before. In all my years, the only thing I can think that maybe comes close to it was when we did our claims process. That all used to be by hand, and then it was electronic. So now we're stepping into a major change. So I think everybody's excited about it, and depending on where you're at with your kid care, either you're an expert in it by now, or you just started, or you even maybe haven't started yet. But we're going to try to get you going in that direction. So first slide here. Mandatory record keeping. So we're going to use kid care basically from now on. So if you haven't started, we really need you to get on board with this, so you can get all your records in, get your claims done. And hopefully the reason we've done this as a state is it's going to reduce the amount of errors that we've been seeing when you're using your paper records. Okay, so right now, the Division of Nutrition Support has purchased Kid Care by Minute Menu Software for all CACFP sponsors that are under agreement with the Division of Nutrition Support. Okay, so we've purchased it. It's at no cost to you at all. And again, it's starting, we will make this mandatory. So Kid Care is mandatory for all institutions participating in CACFP. So starting October 1. Of 2023. All participating institutions must be actively using or working to set up kid care for daily record keeping. Again, no cost at all to you for using this software. It's all going to be web-based, and no cost. I just want to keep saying that because every once in a while we'll have somebody saying that they're still paying for it. So it should be at no cost to you at all. Institutions not using kid care for daily record keeping by January 1st of 2024 will be subject to suspension of claims processing until kid care can be utilized. So we want to see everybody actively working towards getting their kid care up and running and using only kid care for their record keeping. Single site sponsors and multi-site sponsors will both use kid care, which is now completely web-based for record keeping. There's no software to download like in the beginning. It is compatible with any device that can access the internet, including Apple products. So in the beginning, I know we're doing sponsor ones, we're doing CX, you're downloading something. Now you just access it totally through a web-based program. So just through the site itself. The Minute Menu CX software features that were previously used by multi-site sponsors have been moved to Kid Care. The state agency has access to observer mode, so we can see basically what you're doing in there as far as the type of records that you have in there. And we have view only rights too, so we can just basically see what you have. We can't manipulate that data though. Little asterisk there. School food authorities that are using an approved electronic software system to manage their records for their national school lunch program may continue to use that electronic system to manage their CACFP records. So I know there might be some of you guys not quite there yet. So all CACFP sponsors will receive an email this week with an assurance statement that must be returned with your online application. So we have a little screenshot there that shows you that once you complete your form, you can upload it. Well, your signed upload form can go on page 7 of your sponsor application under question 4D that addresses record keeping. So the little arrow there I pointed to, you just attach that document there, and you're going to sign that form and just upload it right there. Failure to upload the signed assurance statement will result in an incomplete application that will be returned to you. Or, we're probably going to call you and say, hey, get your signed form uploaded to us. And without that, we're not going to be approving those applications. Also, how can a CACFP sponsor access their KidCare account? Well, all current CACFP sponsors will already have an account set up for them in their KidCare system. To address this account, you can visit the site right there, https://app.kidcare.com, and select forgot password to reset your account access. The KidCare system will ask you to enter your email address. The email address associated with the executive director on the agreement should be the email account associated with the sponsor's KidCare account. If you enter any other email address, the KidCare system will not be able to locate your account. So some of the problems that we've had is like contacting or getting access to you guys, and it's because when we're using the executive director's email address, either that email address is not correct or it's going to an email address that's not active. So when Karen was talking about the sponsor application, talking about the email address there, make sure everything is up to date so we can be in contact with you, and everything can be accurate, and it's going to flow much better if everything on there is correct and accurate. How can a CACFP sponsor receive training on how to use the KidCare program? Sponsors that have not begun set up our training with KidCare may access training through the following link on the CNP website. So if you go to our CNP website, if you go under Child and Adult Care Food Program and you click on resources, you're going to see several different links under that resource guide, and you go under general program areas and policy guidance. Once there, you can see the little arrow. It shows the KidCare training page. Once you click on that page, it brings you to a wealth of knowledge to the KidCare site. So you have all your trainings listed there, and what's great about it is those trainings are set up in like small, easy to digest web bites. That's what I call them. So you can go, and it will go through everything from, setting up your site, enrolling your children, claims, milk, expenses, reports. There's several things that if you wanted something specific, you can go to that website. You can pick the training that you want, and usually they're somewhere between 2-3 minutes, all the way up to 12 minutes. But they're small, little web-based informational videos that you can watch, get the information you need, and then use that information to help you with your KidCare program. The training links will be provided in the email with the assurance statement. There will be one last webinar provided by KidCare. So let's say if you haven't started yet, or you maybe want to just, be involved in a training that you set it up, but you weren't quite sure you wanted to start yet. There's one last webinar provided by KidCare for this year, which this year, I'm talking about our fiscal year. So it's going to end in September 30th of 2023. So for multi-site users, it'll be September 19th at 10 o'clock. For single site users, it's going to be September 20th at 10 a.m. Previously, we had 11 in-person trainings that were provided around the state during the months of June through August. And these electronic trainings that I just talked about on that little link there are offered year-round. So settings, if you notice, if you go into your KidCare account and you see the little gears, if you can see them, there's like the little gray 3 gears. If you click on that setting, you can see what your settings are set to. So we just want to double check, make sure everybody's on the same page and when we have the same settings as everyone else. So ensure that the answer to the question, would you like to ignore, warn, or disallow insufficient quantities served, is disallowed. So you want that one to set as disallowed. And if you'll see it right there, it says, do you want, let me see. Okay, so that one. The next one is ensure that the answer to the question, do you want to ignore, warn, or disallow for milk shortages when processing claims, and you want that one set to disallow as well. Okay, e-forms. So when KidCare first set everyone up, we still have free and reduced price meal applications that are hard copies. Eventually, everybody's going to transition to electronic forms. So what are e-forms? E-forms are a new feature this fiscal year and are an all-in-one enrollment process for the food program that eliminates the need for our paper enrollment forms and paper free and reduced meal applications. So this is going to be great. A lot of times we'll go to your center, somebody's not there, maybe the executive director or the director's not in. Nobody knows where the applications are. Hey, I think e-forms are going to be really good. They're going to be really good for having access to the information. And it's also going to be a reminder constantly of, do I have my applications and are they up to date and are they correct? So it's going to be some exciting changes. Again, I know some people are a little apprehensive about it, but all changes are, these are all good changes. So e-forms for enrollment and income eligibility are only available to institutions who have children participants currently enrolled. So if you have them currently enrolled, then you can see that e-form. This function cannot be utilized for those who have not already set up their KidCare accounts. Okay. So what are the benefits of using these e-forms? The system won't allow a parent to submit an incomplete enrollment form and free and reduced price meal application. It reviews CID numbers and provided for SNAP. It will only accept 9-digit numbers. If the forms are complete, the system will calculate the free, reduced, and above status for the participant. The eligibility categories will already be determined for you. So again, it's going to be cutting down on errors, just human errors, right? Our enrollment part, with KidCare monitoring enrollment dates for your children, you will not be forced to renew everyone in September, October, like now. Sponsors may choose to either option. You can either use your current enrollment. If your current enrollment expires 1 year from enrollment date versus all enrollment expiring on September 30th for each year. So again, you can choose the way you want to do it. If you're one of those, which I'm probably not that type of person, but if you're one of those where you can keep up with all this and you get the notifications in that your e-form is expiring and it's going to expire from a year from when you receive that application. Or if it was me, I'd probably want to stick with my current September 30th. Now I would want to get all of them in at one time so I could focus on that. But it's up to you as however you want to do it. But there are options on this, so you can tailor it to your needs. Okay, so point of service records. The current point of meal service settings in KidCare is currently set to allow sponsors to electronically record meal counts by the end of the day. So breakfast, lunch, PM snack, you still have until the end of the day to go in and record that. The point of meal service is required to be recorded at the time that the meal or snack is served to participants. So if the point of meal service is not recorded electronically in KidCare system at the time that the meal or snack is served, then the sponsor must record meal counts on paper records. Sponsors can use this paper documentation to transfer meal counts into the KidCare system before the end of the day, but they must retain those paper records as required by CACFP record keeping regulations. So we're saying, look, when you serve a child, we definitely need to have it recorded. Now, whether you're going to record this electronically or you're going to record it by paper, but eventually, if you do it on paper, you still have to go back into your account and upload it by the end of the day. I would work towards eliminating the double work for yourself and record point of service in KidCare at the time of meal service. It's going to be the quickest, easiest way for you. We're still looking at this current practice and determining whether this policy setting for point of meal service will change or not. So if we see that you're not exactly putting it in at the point of meal service in your KidCare account, go out. Maybe you don't have that paper backup documentation, or there's some concern that we're not doing this at the point of meal service. We may have to use those times and set time limits for each meal service. We don't really want to do that. So best practice, again, once you have a child, you serve that child, go ahead, instead of double working yourself and recording it, go ahead and just put it in the KidCare service at the point of meal service, and that's going to be your best practice. Okay, menu templates. Add your 4 weeks meal cycle into your menu templates to make completing daily menus, your menu worksheets, much easier. The state has created a food list of only approved food items for sponsors to use when adding their menus into the system. This prevents you from planning meals that with unallowable food items. Just in general, this is kind of a different step, and it's a different way, and we're on this journey with you guys with KidCare, so we're learning a lot too. But basically, on your production records, you've been very specific, and I know that's been ingrained in everybody. Sometimes, though, with KidCare, we're going to have to be a little bit more general. So instead of being really specific on some items, we may have to be a little bit more general. You may have to find an approved item in your list that is very similar to the item that you're using, or almost exactly it is, but it may just be a part of it. So you may have some like a learning curve on that. So there are some there are several generic food items on the list, such as savory crackers, ready to eat, cereals ready to eat, mixed fruit, mixed vegetables, etc. That would cover a range of foods. So name brands such as like Cheez-Its or Cheerios are not listed. The Cheez-Its would be recorded as a savory cracker, and the Cheerios would be recorded as cereals ready to eat. If you're having difficulty finding a food item, please contact the state office and somebody will help you to locate it on the food list. If an item needs to be added to the food list, we will look into having it added. So sometimes we have, without us working with that food list every day, and you guys do, or there's something that you really want on there, if we have a big push for it and enough of you guys band together and you say, well, hey, we really need this on here, we'll definitely look at it and look into having it added. So it's not that big of a deal. Requires additional work at the beginning of the process. So we're talking about our templates. It does take a little bit of time when you're building that template, but it's going to make it flow so much easier once you get that done. Then you can just upload it and you make your daily menus and menu worksheets a lot easier. Also, I know when you start, you're going to have all these menus in there, and you'll probably do a good 4-week cycle. You may want to start thinking about it. If it ever does get cool here in Louisiana, you'll probably want to change your menus a little bit and have more maybe warmer items or savory items. I know I'm thinking about gumbos and jambalayas, and I'm sure everybody else is too. When we have our cool weather like we had this morning at a very cool 66 degrees. But so you may want to start thinking about your additional items now that you may want to change in the future here. Our parent provided settings. Okay, so KidCare has added a new feature that will assist with the milk audit process that is located under the allergy conditions section of participant information. So as you can see to the left, if you click on allergies and conditions, it'll talk about special diets. So if the parent provides the substitute milk required for our participant's milk allergy, the center can choose the parent provided option from the drop-down box. An effective date must be provided, and you should record the type of substitute milk provided under the special diet notes. So we have a little note section in KidCare that you can explain exactly what you're doing. By selecting parent provided, that parent substitute milk will not be calculated under daily menu production record required amounts or in the milk audit. You will no longer have to adjust your beginning inventory or add a penny receipt to your expenses to account for parent provided milk substitutes. Well, basically all it does is it takes it out of that audit when they're doing when in the background, KidCare is auditing your milk constantly. So every time you have a meal, it's starting to audit it, but it's going to take it out of that audit requirement. If you selected it's being parent provided, your milk substitute is parent provided. This feature can also be selected for participants that have a medical statement requiring them to receive water or juice in place of milk. The receipts. We're going to record all our approved CACFP monthly expenses paid with CACFP funds under receipts. This includes food service supplies, office supplies, approved labor costs, pest control, garbage, etc. Anything that you've been approved for. Recording all approved CACFP expenses will create a complete disbursement journal for the month. In green, you'll see a little highlight there. It says always use the quick entry method when recording receipts. So again, you don't have to, you'll see quick entry at the top, which is selected, and then you'll see itemized entry. Right now, and I don't just think it's necessary to do the itemized receipts. It's a little too invasive. Use the quick entry. That way you can get just the amount in. You can also put your milk quantities in. Another thing is we've had a few questions about this. You don't have to remove the taxes from the receipt total and list it under other. So you don't have to, you can just put the whole total in that, under that item. If it's food, if your bill is $250 and that included taxes, go ahead and put up the $250 on the food and the quick entry. Claim uploads. So this is going to make things a lot easier for everyone. The claim upload feature allows their sponsors to automatically upload their meal counts for the month directly into the CNP website and create a monthly claim. Sponsors won't have to manually enter the number of free, reduced, and above meals for snacks for each day. Some reminders about our claims is the days claimed in KidCare must match the operating days on your CACFP calendar, or the CNP system will disallow the meal snacks claim for those dates. So check your CNP sponsor and facility calendars when you create your monthly menu calendar in KidCare. So just make sure, the sponsor and facility calendars they don't talk with your KidCare account. So in that instance, it doesn't, if you have a day off on your sponsor or facility calendar, you have to be conscious that you're not going to be open that day on your KidCare your monthly menu. So if you accidentally put some numbers in there, you put some kids in there for whatever reason, you try to upload it, it's not going to allow, it's going to disallow that. Or if you were open, then you're going to have to do a revision to your sponsor and your facility claim, your application. Keep your kid care or adult care license updated in your kid care system and in the CNP system. Once a claim is uploaded, you will find it under the claims, open claims section. You must still add the participant ADA and manually submit the claim to the state. Uploading a claim does not submit the claim to the state for payment. So again, once you're finished with your claim in kid care, you can download that to your computer and then upload it to our system. But before you do that though, make sure you open it, and then, well, before you would do that, you would download it, you would do your ADA and put that in manually, which everybody knows that is your average daily attendance. The participant ADA is calculated by the kid care system and can be found on the monthly kid care claim details page. So all that's done for you already. All you have to do is manually put it in. The total of the open claim may be checked against the kid care claim amount. Add the reimbursement plus the cash in lieu amounts to get the total reimbursement listed in kid care. Once the claim has been submitted, click on Claims Pending Claims to verify that the claim has been received by the state. You should also recheck the total of the pending claim against the kid care claim amount. You will not need to add anything, but once the claim is submitted, the total monthly reimbursement will be calculated. The submission step may result in meals and snacks being disallowed if the CNP system detects any errors in operating days, approved meals and snacks, license expiration, license capacity, etc. So contact us if you need any, if you need the submitted claim released back to you for any edits. So you did everything right, you uploaded it to our system, you noticed there was some errors made, or something that you needed to get it back, just contact us. We'll release that claim back to you, and then you can edit it from there. Record keeping. So electronic annual monthly records, you don't need to print these out. These reports, you don't need to print them out each month and place them in a monthly folder. They will be electronically stored in kid care. So what is electronic and what do we still need paper for? So electronically, your free and reduced price meal applications and your Head Start enrollment forms. If y'all using e-forms, that's going to be electronic. Your enrollment roster is now electronic. Appointed meal service records, your meal count attendance records, your cycle menus, your menu worksheets, disbursement journal, and your cost of food used report. Our required paper records. So these paper records must be kept on file because they're just not available in our kid care system. So if you're not using free e-forms, then you will need your free and reduced price meal applications, or if you're Head Start, you need your enrollment forms. We still need to have a bank statement on file. Your backup, your receipts are invoices. So that's what we use as backup documentation. So once you've entered your receipts in kid care, these are the hard copies of the receipts or invoices that we'll need to see on site. Your timesheets for any labor being paid through your CACFP account, your training records and monitoring records, policies and procedures, and your monthly inventory. So those are the required records that we need on site. So a checklist, if you need a checklist, you can use the little QR code and go to the site where that you can be found. And it's just a checklist of what you can do daily, we can do monthly, and like an annual reminder. So it's like a one-page that you can look on for your, you guys that are single site sponsors, and you can just see what you need to do in each one of those, and also has a little reminder on the claim. So basically how to do the claim in like a little short form. And we also have one for multi-site sponsors. Again, it's this one's a little bit longer, but basically it says what you need to do daily, weekly, monthly, and also annually. And we have a little QR code where you can get to this checklist.
Okay, thank you, David. Good morning. I'm Brittany Augustus, so I'll be discussing additional information and resources. The first thing, reimbursement rates. So the reimbursement rates effective July 1st, 2023, and they're effective through June 30th, 2024. It did go up a little bit. Breakfast, lunch, and supplements. It shows you the free reduced above for the breakfast went up to $2.28, reduced $1.98, and above 38 cents. For the lunch or supper, $4.25, $3.85, and 40 cents. And for supplements, which is your snack, $1.17, 58, and 10 cents. And also cash in lieu of commodities, 0.29. So those are the amounts that you will receive: breakfast, lunch, and supplements. Okay, so our compliance review for 2024 will be conducted in Region 2, which is the yellow highlighted area. CNR Resources will be conducting all of our CACFP compliance reviews. CNR Resources will conduct on-site reviews, but they will reach out for documentation upon prior to the review. So if documents are not reviewed or requested by CNR Resources or beforehand, the entire review will be on site. They will be able to access and review the documents through KidCare for the sponsors that are actively using the KidCare system prior to the review. That's why we encourage you to make sure you're starting to use the KidCare so they can look at your documents prior to coming and your review won't be so long. State agency staff will be conducting on-site TA visits in Region 2 for the 2024 review year. Records for multi-site sponsors must be kept at the location indicated on your application. So if you have multiple sites, when you do your application and you indicate your records will be on that site, when we come out to that site, because sometimes CNR might not call you, it's going to be an on-site unannounced review. They're going to be looking for all those documents to be on site at that particular site. So please, whatever site that you'll have your documents at, indicated on your application, because they can't go from 3 to 4 or 5 centers trying to get all your different documents. So this is just a document checklist. I won't read everything on the checklist. I'll just briefly go over some things. So KidCare reports. I'm sorry. So KidCare reports referenced in this does not need to be printed. So if you have all your menus in KidCare, you don't have to print your menus out. We'll look at it prior to coming. Your applications, if they're going to be e-forms, we can look at those as well. But if you don't have e-forms, you have to have the paper forms and make sure they're readily accessible to the reviewer. Make sure you have a copy of your permanent agreement, your meal count records, your daily attendance records. Like we said, menu worksheets. If they're in KidCare, we can look at those items. You don't have to print out all those menus. Your special diets, make sure you have your documentation for your special diets, your trainings and your monitoring records. Since you indicate the months that you're going to do your training and monitoring, make sure that whatever you put on your application, that you really do your training and monitoring on those in those months. Your financial records, your policies and procedures, and your license information. So when we come out, if your license basically might have been expired in the system, make sure you have an updated license so we can have a copy of it if you didn't upload it in the system. But those are the things that we look at whenever we come out to do a review. So these are some common errors in the compliance monitoring that we've noticed going out to do monitoring. Enrollment attendance. So every child has to have a free reduced price meal application or annual enrollment form if it's a Head Start on file for each child at that facility. So please make sure when kids are added at your facility that you do get the parents to fill out an enrollment form or a free and reduced price meal application. Also, another common error that they're being categorized incorrectly. There is a new sheet that came out July 1st of 2023 that has the income requirements. It went up a little bit with the income requirements. Go back and look at your sheets whenever you do your new sheets, October 1st or September 30th, whenever you do your sheets, and make sure you're using that up-to-date July 1st sheet. Every July 1st, a new sheet, a new income requirement comes out. Use that to properly categorize, because you don't want to have someone as being reduced or above and they may really be free. Or don't put someone as free and they're really reduced or above, now you're overclaiming. Also, make sure you maintain your meal count and attendance record for each site that you have. Like David said, right now, you might be doing it through Kid Care. And now, if you're not using your Kid Care properly, you're doing paper records. But make sure you start maintaining those meal count and attendance records, because that's something that we do look at whenever we come out and do your audit. Also, improperly maintain meal count attendance records, because some people may use the paper, then go back and put it in Kid Care, but they didn't document that Johnny came in and had breakfast, but in Kid Care, you put that they didn't. So you kind of want to maintain the proper record so you won't miss out on a child or overclaim on a child. Your menus and menu worksheets, those are being improperly maintained as well, because your cook or whoever is in charge of doing the menu worksheets might forget to put down the quantities that they serve. They might go back the next day and try to add it, but can't remember. So make sure that every day in the morning or in the afternoon, you go back and put exactly what you served for that day or prepare for that day, so your menu worksheets will be properly maintained. Also, serving the wrong milk or not enough milk. That's a lot of issues that we noticed when we go out, that people are buying 2%. You're not supposed to have 2%. It's supposed to be whole milk and 1% or unflavored milk. Also with the special diets, make sure when the parents are providing the milk that it's unflavored. It can't be vanilla oat milk. It has to be unflavored milk that we're serving to those special diet children. Also, the financials, missing receipts for CACFP purchases. That's something that we notice a lot of times, that when we go back and look at the financial records and look at the bank statements, the receipts are not there. So we can't compare to see what you purchased on that bank statement for the $50. You might say, hey, that was milk or bread, but we don't know that. So make sure when someone goes out to the store for you, or you go out to the store, keep your receipts. Put them in an envelope, put them somewhere where you can have access to them for that particular month. Something else we've noticed, access funds in the CACFP account, meaning that 3 months of reimbursement has accumulated. Make sure you're spending that 50% that you're supposed to spend on food or more. Make sure that if you notice that you can't spend your money, start buying fresh fruits, fresh vegetables. Find things that's a little higher that can help you kind of spend that money, so you won't have over 3 months worth of reimbursement in your account. Also, we've noticed training and monitoring, no records documenting the training and monitoring. Like I said previously, you choose the days the months that you want to do your trainings. So just make sure you put, like, on your calendar, hey, I put on my application in January, I was going to do a monitoring. Get you a little tickler so you can know that you have to do your training and monitoring every year. So these are some training updates. They're going to be October 2024. Program participants will check your emails for details. You'll get correspondence sent to the address that you have for the executive director listed on your application. So make sure that your email address is a current email address or email address that you use. So when you do your new application, or if the person that was previously there is no longer there, go in and make sure that your sponsor application has an updated email address, because that's the email address that we'll use to send out correspondence for training updates. Your earned clock hours for pathways programs, remember to register correctly, because only one certificate per registered email address of that attendee. So you can't I wouldn't suggest you have multiple people using that one email address because we're only going to give out one certificate. So if different people are going to watch the training, they should do their own email address to get their clock hours. We're also planning for hybrid trainings, allowing the option for in-person, on-site, and virtual education at the same time to better meet the needs of the participants. So we're using a program called Louisiana Fit Kids. This is the email address for Louisiana Fit Kids, but you'll use this link to set up for trainings. And like I said, if multiple people will be doing the trainings, make sure that multiple people sign up because we only give out one certificate per email address. Okay, so emergency shelters. So the temporary reimbursement that we had for the waiver for the emergency shelters expired May 11, 2023. So you may continue to claim for reimbursement for kids up until 18. At first, it was temporary where we can do 19 through 24. That has expired. Like Karen said, all waivers are expired. We no longer have any current waivers. So the one we had, they were reimbursing for 19 through 24-year-olds in emergency shelters. It expired May 11, 2023. So right now, the only thing you can get reimbursed for if a person is up to 18 years old in emergency shelter for the meals and snacks. So this is our field trip meal approval request. So this must be submitted in advance for approval. Just because you submit it doesn't mean it's approved. Wait to get the approval before you go on the actual field trip. It must specify the exact date and location of the field trip. It must specify procedures for maintaining food safety. It must also include all components for the meal. The you can get on the CNP site, go under resources and tab, policies and procedures and forms. And this is the field trip approval form. So if you know you're going on a field trip, submit it timely to get it back and get it approved. Like I said, just because you submitted it doesn't mean that it's approved. You have to wait till you get it back. It tells you if it's approved or denied before you're able to go on the field trip and claim that meal for that field trip. This is our equipment purchase request. So this is just a reminder, you must have 3 quotes. The 3 quotes must be from different stores or websites. The quotes must be the same or very similar items. Do not submit quotes for a 4-burner stove and a 6-burner stove. So if you're gonna do a quote for a 4-burner stove, you have to have 3 of them for the same type of stove. You cannot mix and match your quotes. These are not additional CACFP funds. This is a request to utilize the funds that you currently have. So don't go buy a stove and then come back and submit the request for a stove. You have to get this approved prior to getting a stove. It doesn't necessarily have to be a stove. It can be a refrigerator. It can be all kinds of items that you need in the kitchen. However, it has to be approved first. You can't go purchase it and then turn around and turn in the request to buy equipment. Also, if you only have a couple of $100 in your account, I wouldn't suggest you put a request in to buy a new stove and now you don't have any money in your food account to purchase food. But you can click on also the CNP site, the resource tab, procurement and forms, and that's the form that you get to request for approval of equipment purchases. And these are a list of the resources of the different websites to access Department of Education, our Kid Care, USDA, My Plate, Nutrition. So these are the different links that you can use to access these resources. Also, this training is being recorded, so later on you can go back and get the resources if you need to write them down later on.
Good morning, everyone. This is Debbie Gary. I am here today speaking to you about our about civil rights. Just a reminder, if you guys have any questions, please type those into the chat. We do have someone monitoring the chat, and we will be more than happy to answer all questions before we get off of this program today. Just as an FYI, we are running a little bit ahead of time, so we do expect to be finished with this training about noon today. So, purpose of civil rights training. This is to inform and educate and support all staff who interact with child nutrition program applicants. Okay. It states staff rights and responsibilities as administrators of the child nutrition program. We're going to go over general rights for USDA civil rights requirements, and also resources and information available to assist your staff with carrying out civil rights responsibilities. Here's the outline. We're going to go over each of these topics today. We're going to start off with public notification systems. Civil rights laws. These are like Civil Rights Act of 1964. This is just a general history. It prohibited discrimination based on race, color, and national origin. Okay. The educational amendments of 1972. This prohibited discrimination based upon sex under any education program or activity that is receiving financial assistance. Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 73 prohibits discrimination based on disability. 1990, the Americans with Disabilities Act. Okay, it prohibits discrimination based on disability in all services and programs and activities provided by the federal government to state and local governments. And 1990, the Americans with Disabilities Act added amendments. Okay, in 1975, prohibits discrimination of age in programs or activities receiving federal funds. And in 1987, it prohibits discrimination based upon race, color, and national origin. So, who are our civil rights program authorities? Okay, here is a link, 28 CFR Part 42. That's in the Code of Federal Regulations. Okay, executive orders, USDA, LEP, limited English proficient guidance. We're going to go over all of these, but here are the regulations and where they're found that details each one of these items. So, what is discrimination? Okay, discrimination is defined as different treatment, which makes a distinction of one person or group, either intentionally, by neglect, or by actions or lack of actions based upon protected classes. Our protected classes are race, color, national origin, sex, disability, and age. So all staff must be trained annually on civil rights. Okay, this includes part-time staff, temporary staff, any volunteers you have at your centers, and full-time staff, even central office staff and site staff. Okay, the first training, you guys are fixing to get your applications, and just like Karen said, when you are choosing your educations, okay, the first education has to be completed within 2 months of the program year, and that one is non-negotiable. It's about record keeping and civil rights. Okay, so documentation of this training must be maintained. The sign-in sheets to show who was in attendance with the agenda written on them, the date and the time of training. And all of these signatures have to be completed by the person who is taking the training. That needs to be in their own handwriting. So these are the things that you would keep for us. These are one of the paper documents that David went over when this is not electronic in KidCare. So you would have to keep this training for us. So additional requirements. The collection and use of data, okay? The effective public notification systems, a complaint procedure, okay? And the compliance review techniques. how to resolve issues of non-compliance. What are the accommodations that you should be making for persons with disabilities? What about if you have someone who is not proficient in the English language? Okay. And how to resolve the conflict and what type of customer service that you can provide your parents and your constituents. This is what we're fixing to go over. Public notification. You need to inform surrounding areas that your sponsoring agency participates in the child nutrition program. Okay. To reach as many applicants or participants or potentially eligible persons as possible, to ensure the program has access. You must include information on eligibility, on benefits and services, on program availability. What are these applicants' rights and responsibilities? What if they have a complaint or if they have an issue, what do they need to do? Okay, what exactly are the non-discrimination policies and any program changes that you may have to occur? So, methods for public notification. Okay, a public release. Okay, informing the general public that your sites participate in the child nutrition program and that free and reduced price meals are offered. Okay, and hanging up and justice for all poster. This is one of the things that we check when we enter y'all's facilities. So any type of communication. It can be internet. It can be maybe an ad you want to place in the newspaper. Okay. It can be maybe a radio and TV announcements, a letter or a newsletter or a bulletin. Okay. The state once a year does make this notification on your behalf. Okay. So, and as a state, when we put out that notification annually, that does meet this requirement for you all. So public releases to the media. Media releases should be provided near the beginning of the school year. Again, we take care of that for you all. It can include the eligibility criteria, the public notices, what we do for you guys, where they are provided to news media, unemployment offices, on the statewide server. Okay. And it's at the discretion of the media if they decide to publish that information. Okay. And then again, our office, the Division of Nutrition Service, does issue this media relief on behalf of all CACFP sponsors. And it's typically issued in September of every year. Okay, so you guys do not have to worry about that. You just need to know that we are doing that on your behalf. Letters to household. If you decide to issue letters to all of your participants, you must distribute those letters regarding program availability to households of children that are enrolled. They can be sent at the beginning of the year. You can mail them, you can email them, you can hand them out in person, or you can do them as a part of an information packet if you choose to do that. The Injustice for All poster, okay? These posters need to be displayed in a prominent area at your facility, okay? It needs to be visible to everyone that enters in the public area. Now, these posters must be an 11 by 17, okay? We do have some of these posters. I know the posters are updated by USDA, and that their printing they have not printed the new posters yet, so we don't have them yet to be able to give out. So the non-discrimination statement. This is a required statement that must be included on all forms of communication and program materials. Okay. This includes the materials that are for the public, okay? Just for education about your facility, or any type of distribution that mentions USDA programs, okay? This also is to be included in your employee handbook. So the long version, there are two different versions. The long version, this is when you want to use whenever possible, okay? The long version is required on all documents pertaining to student eligibility, okay? Even if they're just one page. The long version has to be used on all vital material. The short version, okay, is required if the material or document is too small to permit the long version, okay? And at least a 9-point font is required, okay? Nothing smaller than that, okay? Such as on like any type of menu that you put out for your facility or hanging up, okay? So the short version is this. It states, this institution is an equal opportunity provider, okay? So for example, if you all have a social media page, okay, and you are putting out there that you have openings in a 2-year-old class, so within that statement, you do have to state, you have to have the short version of this non-discrimination statement. Okay, you have to put on there that this institution is an equal opportunity provider. That statement needs to be on all of your messages or any type of advertisements that you put out, either in the long or the short version based upon what it is. So this is the discrimination statement in the long version, okay? And we tell you this goes in your employee handbook, and this goes in your parent handbook. In these exact words, you copy and paste this. In these exact words, you don't change one word of this statement. Okay, so make sure. And a lot of times when we go in for reviews and things, we will find that it's not the most updated version. Okay, you are required, again, to list the most updated version of this non-discrimination statement. And again, one of the categories, limited English proficient. Okay, so again, here is this non-discrimination statement in Spanish. Okay, there are a lot of computer programs out there right now, and also on the USDA's non-discrimination webpage where you can print this up or copy and paste it in several different languages. So printing requirements. The wording for either statement must be exact. Again, you cannot change this wording in any way, shape, or form. The print size for either statement shall be no smaller than the text of the material. The shorter version of this statement may be used for broadcast advertisements and announcements or other publications not related to student eligibility. Okay. Again, if you are printing documents that detail and tell what students are eligible, then you do have to include the long version. So vital documents about sensitive topics require the full non-discrimination statement, okay, regardless of the size of the page. So you would have to use the long version for that. So here are examples of some materials, okay? And all of these materials need to have some version of the non-discrimination statement, okay? Whether it be print advertisements, any type of handbooks, websites, okay? If you all have a website for your center, okay, somewhere on that website, it needs to list the non-discrimination statement. in any type of letter that you send out. If you're doing an advertisement that's verbal, say you're going to do it on the radio, before that advertisement ends, you will need to say that its institution is an equal opportunity provider. Okay, you do need to say that has to be stated. So meal service. What we want to make sure is that all participants, regardless of race, color, national origin, sex, age, or disability, are allowed equal opportunities to participate in the child nutrition program. Okay, all participants must be treated equally. Okay, and this is why when we go into some of your centers, we will ask you, are you claiming infants? And sometimes you guys say, no, we don't claim infants. Okay, just be aware that all participants need to be allowed equal opportunity to participate in this program. Okay, so feeding arrangements, serving lines, assignment of eating periods, methods for selection of application approval and verification process. All of these things are things to take into account just to make sure that you are treating all of your individuals equally. Okay. USDA does have a memo about separation by gender. Okay. And that link will take you to more information about separating by gender. So, all students within the same grade or grouping must be offered the same selection of menu items in the same amounts, regardless of eligibility, regardless of sex, national origin, race, color, including when a sponsor offers a selection of more than one type of meal that is claimed for reimbursement. Okay, or a variety of foods and milks for choices within the meal requirements. Now, for example, okay, do high school football players get more food or bigger scoops? Okay, do certain individuals get different serving sizes? Do only some grades or some classes get offered a chocolate milk if they're eligible to receive that? Okay, or are certain foods saved for certain groups of students? Okay, those are examples where you could potentially be getting yourself into a civil rights issue, because again, not all of these students would be treated the same. So, denial of meals. USDA policy prohibits the denial of meals as a disciplinary action against any student who is enrolled in that site and participates in the child nutrition program. Okay, including disciplinary actions that directly result in a loss or denial of meals, or requiring a child to work for their meal. Okay, just be aware of that. Okay, so if just say, for example, if maybe someone is misbehaving and they get sent to an office, or they get sent somewhere, and then, and that is during a lunch period or a meal period. Okay, that child cannot be denied that meal. Okay, and again, you can't require a child to work for their meal. Overt identification. Okay, this is defined as any action that can identify a child as approved or potentially eligible to receive free or reduced price meals. Any information that could be used to identify a child cannot be used for any purpose other than determining and verifying eligibility for free or reduced price meals. Okay, that is very much prohibited. And sponsors must ensure that they do not disclose a child's eligibility status at any point in the process of providing free or reduced price meals. Okay, there can't be a free line or free plates or reduced plates or above plates. Okay, this information is strictly confidential. This is probably something that your teachers should not know. Okay, so when they go into kid care and mark, you know, and mark the point of meal service, that information is not listed on that screen. Okay, that information is only available to certain individuals who need that information. Okay. Conflict resolution. So what skills can you use to help your staff provide good customer service and avoid potential civil rights complaints? Okay. Avoid the desire to blame. Okay. Improve the situation. Communicate your feelings directly. Improve relationships and increase communication. And avoid repeating the situation. Okay. A lot of times communication goes a long way. Just letting the parent or the student or the guardian know the rules or know why we're doing something. Letting them know the why behind the situation really goes a long way. LEP, language assistance. So as a sponsor, you guys, we all have the responsibility to take reasonable steps to ensure meaningful access to these programs and activities by people who are not proficient in the English language. So reasonable steps. Number or proportion of LEP people eligible to be served or likely to be encountered by the programs. Okay. So if you're opening up a center somewhere that has a high proportion of people who speak Spanish or Mexican or something like that, okay, you know that you're going to have to take some reasonable steps to provide your documents and to provide communications with those individuals. The frequency in which LEP individuals come in contact with the program. The nature and importance of the program, activity, or service, or the resources available to the recipient. So language translations. Make sure that C&P information is available to all participants and their families in the necessary language. Okay, this is going to mean the enrollment forms, menus, any type of informational brochure or letters and notifications to family members. Okay, all of those, you can get them off the computer. You can change the language on those things and then save them. Okay, if you're trying to, there's a lot of free language apps and translation apps that you can download from your phone. So language interpreters. Children should not be used as interpreters, okay? You may use a volunteer, but you should understand the ethics for using interpreters, okay? For example, like a Spanish teacher could assist a household in completing an application, but we would need to train that teacher on the importance of keeping that information confidential. LEP.gov, that link right there. If you would like any more additional information and resources, feel free to click on that link. Racial and ethnic data. This is used to determine how effectively our program is reaching potentially eligible children and where outreach may be needed. Okay. We ask you all that you collect the data annually. Okay, it's usually collected at the time of enrollment, And it's listed on the free and reduced price meal application. And remember, those records have to be kept for 3 years plus the current year. Okay. If they're on paper in kid care, remember they are automatically saved. So the requirement of visual identification. This this guidance was put out from USDA in May 17th of 2021. Okay. That we are not allowed to visually identify participants and assign them upon what we think any racial or ethnic data. So by January 1st, 2023, program operators must have an alternative means to capture the data. So adult participants and parents and guardians may be asked, okay, again, may be asked to identify the racial or ethnic group of the participant only after that it has been explained, okay? And they understand that providing the information is to ensure compliance with USDA non-discrimination rights only, and that failure to report the information will not impact the participant's eligibility for meals. Okay, so they need to understand that providing this information or not providing this information will not be held against them in any way, shape, or form. So FNS, USDA Division of Food Nutrition Service discourages asking a child to self-identify their race or ethnicity, okay? As the practice, it can be confusing to young children, okay? FNS does understand that requesting information verbally may be uncomfortable for staff and for participants. Please respect their dignity, and guide the processes and methods for collecting data on race and ethnicity. Ideally, the family or the guardians who are filling out the forms should be able to put that, but you cannot make them, okay? That is a voluntary section on the form. And if they choose, not to identify that, then they choose not to identify that, okay? And we do understand that. So state agencies and program operators may wish to consider the following: using individual school enrollment data to obtain that. If we do need that information, we can maybe contact the schools for their behalf to obtain that for them. And sites that are able to obtain children's names and have access to school enrollment records, they can possibly use them to obtain racial and ethnic data. And that would be for school food service sites only, okay? That is not a requirement, okay? That is only if you need that data. So providing racial and ethnic data is voluntary, okay? Again, that is voluntary. If as a program operator, if you're unable to collect the participants' information, mark that response as unknown, okay? For that reason, the FNS does not expect that the number of respondents will equal the number of children at a site, okay? Again, the USDA does expect us to try to capture the data, but they do understand that we as a state agency, and we understand that you as a program sponsor or provider, you just may not be able to collect that data. Additional resources, again, are listed right there in those links. So, ethnic and racial categories, okay? There are two ethnic categories, or Hispanic or Latino, and non-Hispanic or non-Latino. And then race categories, or American Indian or Alaska Native, Asian, Black or African American, Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander or white. So that's the choices that are on all of our forms and in kid care. Okay, so let's touch on persons with disabilities. What is your responsibility as a sponsor? You have to provide accessible facilities. This includes parking lots, this includes entrances and exits, halls, elevators, or restrooms. You have to provide appropriate information in alternative formats. That could mean Braille program materials for people who are sight restricted, or sign language interpreters for individuals who have hearing difficulties. It also states that you have to provide food substitutions for students with disabilities when documented in writing by a licensed medical provider. And when included, if you are a school site with the child's IEP or 504 plan, at no extra charge. So what if someone in your center has a meal modification? So modifications within the meal pattern, okay, do not require a medical statement. So for example, if little Johnny does not like carrots and he likes green beans, okay, those are two vegetables, okay, and that is not a medical reason. So that would not require a medical statement. Modifications that are outside of a meal pattern do require a medical statement, okay? These statements must include food to be avoided, okay? What is a recommended substitute, and a brief explanation of how the exposure will affect the child. So for example, if little Sally is allergic to nuts, okay, and nuts are in the meat category, what would be an acceptable substitute for that? Okay, so that would be something else in the meat category, and then a brief explanation of what's going to happen if she comes in contact with nuts. Okay, one of the most frequent ones we see are with milk. Okay, unfortunately, we do see a lot of milk allergies. Okay, so an allergy is a medical situation, so you all would require some type of medical statement, and it would have to say what an acceptable alternative would be. Okay, and then what would happen, briefly, what would happen if the child was exposed to that? Would they break out? Would they, what would you look for? Okay, in that situation. If the statement does not fully explain the modification needed, okay, get with your parents, get with your guardians, and get the additional information, okay? Receipt of the clarification should not delay the sponsor from providing the modification, okay? So if a parent comes in there and says, look, we just found out that he is allergic to milk and he's got to have this milk, he's got to have a specific type, that you immediately stop serving that. And if it's a hardship, you can ask the parent or the guardian to provide that to you, okay? But just because they don't have a note, or they may not have a note that day, that doesn't delay you from providing that, okay? You would automatically switch that and immediately no longer give that child what they are allergic to. So the right to file a complaint. Any person who believes that themselves or someone else has been discriminated against based on federal protected classes has a right to file a complaint within 180 days of the alleged discriminatory action. And to file a complaint, you can mail, they can call, they can fax, or they can email, okay, within 180 days. So forms of civil rights complaints, they can be either written, verbal, or observed, okay? if receiving a verbal complaint, listen politely. Okay. Some complaints can either be made via phone, letter, email, fax, or any other type of form of communication. They may be anonymous. Okay. Anonymous complaints should be handled just like any other complaint. They can be related to any area of CNP operation, whether it be program administration, food service, or employment. So step one, you're going to need to document the complaint. You document the name, address, and phone number of the complainant, okay, if they are willing to provide that. Document the specific name and location of the entity delivering that benefit or service, okay. The nature of the incident, action, or the method of administration that led to the complaint, for the individual to feel like they were discriminated against. You're going to want to document the basis on which the complainant feels discriminated. Okay. Do they feel as though their race, color, national origin, sex, or disability had something to do with it? The names, titles, business addresses, and phone numbers of the persons who may have knowledge of this. Okay. Did someone else witness this? Was anybody else around? And the dates during which the alleged discriminatory actions occurred. Okay. Or if they are continuing, the duration of these actions. Is it still going on? Did it happen once? Is it happening every day? You're going to want to document all of that information. Step number 2, contact USDA. Either verbally or written complaints must be forwarded to USDA Civil Rights Division within 3 days of receiving a complaint. Okay. Again, within 3 days, that has to be reported to USDA. Step 3, maintain your records. Keep them in a central location where copies of civil rights complaints are going to be documented and kept. Agencies may provide a complaint form to any individuals wishing to make a complaint, or a person receiving verbal, or whoever takes the phone call, okay, receiving the complaint. Again, here is our links with the most updated non-discrimination statement and the complaint form. So this is the form, and that is the link directly to the USDA discrimination website. Again, all staff in your facility must be trained on civil rights annually or upon when they're hired. The compliant form must be available at all sites, and staff should allow individuals to file their own complaint with as little involvement possible. Okay, nobody needs all the drama, at facilities or disruption of business. So if our individual has a complaint, they need to handle that confidentially, and you allow those individuals to file their own complaints. Reminders. USDA regional office is responsible for the review of state agencies. And we just had them a few weeks ago. The Southwest Regional Office, we had about 5 or 6 individuals from USDA come in and spend the week with us, where they reviewed our procedures of how we handle the things that we're responsible for. Okay. A state agency is responsible for the review of sponsors. Okay. We have to report any significant findings to USDA. And sponsors must receive a pre-approval visit to ensure compliance with civil rights before receiving federal funds. Okay. That is one of the things that we have a whole page where we ask you, when we come out to do a pre-approval. And we ask you all of these questions, okay? And again, these questions are in your applications that you do annually. There is a set of 9 questions that we ask to ensure that you are in compliance with civil rights. And access to complaint information, they shall be limited and controlled to assure confidentiality, okay? If someone comes to you with a complaint or a civil rights complaint, that is between you and the individual and USDA, and our state office, and that does not get shared or told around your facilities. So, resolution of a noncompliance. If a noncompliance is indicated, okay, so if something happens at one of the facilities, you will have a corrective action plan has to be implemented to achieve voluntary compliance within 60 days, okay? And that corrective action plan will describe your agency's actions that you're going to take to resolve the non-compliance with civil rights so that it never happens again. And suspension of assistance or termination may result if the non-compliance is not resolved. So here's a good checklist. Civil rights written policy and complaint log should be kept. Train all of your staff and volunteers, okay? All of them should know the civil rights policy. They need to know where the And Justice for All poster is located. They need to know how to collect and record racial ethnic data if it is provided. Again, keep all records for 3 years plus the current. Maintain civil rights compliance procedures and forms. And then place your non-discrimination statement, whether it be the long form or the short form, on all printed materials or advertisements or social media pages, things like that. Make sure that that statement is on there. Here's a list of resources. Again, we want to provide you all with as much resources as you're comfortable with. And we want you to be able to know where you can go for additional information. So when you get this handout, feel free to click on any of those links for additional information. How do you contact us? At LDOE, our phone number, and there is our email address. Here's our staff listing, because we are coming to the end of this training. Here is how you reach out to us, okay? Either by telephone number or by email address. We are happy, our phones are forwarded most of the time, our emails are forwarded most of the time. So we can do our best at getting back with you all. Thank you. Thank you for attending training today. Again, if anyone has any questions, we will hang on for a little bit and we make sure that we answer those to the best of our ability in the chat. What happens next? Okay, so if you're attending this training live, okay, and you registered correctly, you will be receiving an email from me that is going to list your clock hours, and that email acts as your certificate at this time. Okay, please keep that for your records. And within the next 48 hours, I should have that out to you. Everyone in our program will receive a link to rewatch this recording, and will receive links to the Fit Kids site where you can print up handouts and where you can print out a copy of this training should you need it again. Okay, so give me about 48 hours to get that done. In 48 hours, if you do not have your clock hours certificate, and please check, okay? Check your spam folders, check your junk folders, because what I do is I copy and paste your emails, okay? Angela, you can stop the recording now if you'd like.